Welcome to the market information presentation prior to the formal procurement process for the North London Heat and Power Project's site-wide minor civils framework. We aim to provide you with helpful content and information to enable you to prepare for the start of the procurement process. We encourage you to provide feedback on our proposals for the minor civils framework, and details of how to do this will be shared at the end of this presentation. My name is Douglas Chisholm, and I'm the Project Delivery Lead for the North London Heat and Power Project. Today's agenda will consist of a safety moment and an introduction to the authority by Alan Haynes. I will give some more background to the North London Heat and Power Project, and then my colleagues Alan and Karen will talk about the more detailed scope of the framework, how it will be procured, and how you can ask questions and provide feedback. I shall now hand over to Alan to present us with a safety moment and introduction to the authority.
G'day, my name is Alan Haynes, and I'm the Construction Manager on the North London Heat and Power Project, representing the North London Waste Authority. Today, I'm going to tell you about a newspaper article dated 14th of the 12th, 2006. The article read, man electrocuted during outage crossover works at Burwell substation in Cambridgeshire. Steve Kirkup, 41 years of age, from Newcastle, was working from a self-propelled scissor lift in the middle of the National Grid substation in Wearstrow on the edge of Burwell village when he received a fatal high voltage electric shock. He fell about 6 metres, but it's not clear if he was electrocuted and then fell, or if he fell from the lift and then received the shock. Paramedics and helicopter rescue were called to the scene. Doctors and paramedics worked to try and stabilise Steve's heart, but for some 40 minutes after they arrived, he was then declared dead. He was wearing all the right PPE gear, including a safety harness, although it seems this may not have been attached. Steve was employed by Siemens Transmission and Distribution, based in Hebburn, and worked all over the country as a T&D foreman. He had worked for the same company for over 25 years and was highly experienced. Steve stood in for a colleague that had to return home on short notice to complete an unplanned task that National Grid required before the Christmas break. Steve never made it home. He left a wife and 2 children. He left a massive hole in the team on that project. Steve was my friend. Now, the moral of this story is that you really must plan and plan ahead at all times in any given task, because in this instance, this was an unplanned task that probably didn't receive the correct form of planning. The North London Waste Authority is a statutory waste disposal authority for the North London boroughs of Barnet, Camden, Enfield, Hackney, Haringey, Islington and Waltham Forest. We are the second largest waste authority in the country, serving over 2 million people. We deal with 3% of the UK's household waste. Our highest priority is to minimise and avoid waste, to help to protect the planet and preserve resources for future generations. We are proud of our wide-reaching and award-winning programme of activity to support waste reduction and increase recycling.
I'm now going to give you some background to the North London Heat and Power Project. The North London Heat and Power Project, which we also refer to as the NLHPP, is replacing the existing waste management plant at EcoPark in Edmonton, and it has served North London for nearly 50 years and processed more than 21 million tonnes of non-recyclable waste, which would otherwise have gone to landfill. As I mentioned earlier, the client for this project is the North London Waste Authority. The NLHPP work commenced in 2017 and is continuing over the next 10 years. It involves building the following: an energy recovery facility to generate low carbon energy from waste in the form of heat and power, a resource recovery facility with an area to process bulky waste and prepare materials for energy recovery, reuse and recycling centre for use by the public, an eco-park house sited on the River Lee navigation, which will include a visitor and information centre. The NLHPP is also playing a role in tackling the climate emergency, and in fact, the NLWA has a statutory responsibility to deal with the waste left by residents after recycling. And the NLWA's commitment is to existing and future generations of North Londoners to do this in a way that minimises the climate impact of their waste. The NLHPP has a strong project vision, which is to create a waste management facility in which local communities take pride, demonstrates value, and is a model for public sector project delivery. The effective management of health, safety and well-being across all the NLHPP programme is also of prime importance to the authority. Our aim here is to achieve zero harm to everyone involved in the project and working and living in the local community by putting health, safety and well-being as the #1 priority. To build on how we're going to do that and give you a bit of an understanding of that, you will see in this diagram the structure that we have around this. It's a client-led approach to management, continual improvement to health, safety and well-being. There are some driving principles that include the UK law and regulations, a safety-first culture, a health, safety and well-being management plans, compliance and monitoring, reporting performance, and continual improvement plans. We underpin this by information, training, consultation and communication flowing between the client team and our principal contractors, suppliers and stakeholders. Employment relations are also of great importance to the authority. And the authority sees stable and harmonious employment relations as being critical to the successful completion of the NLHPP. The authority will not involve itself in employment relations between contractors and employees. However, it is their policy to see that contractors are managing employment matters appropriately. As such, the authority has developed an employment relations code of practice. Contractors will be required to submit their own employment relation plans for approval, which as a minimum must meet the needs and the requirements of the employment relations code of practice. Contractors will be required to comply with their approved employment relations plan and other employment obligations, such as paying the London living wage and avoiding blacklisting practices and any form of discrimination. So to introduce the framework in a bit more detail, I'd like to just share a little bit of what it's about, and Alan will expand on that in a moment. But it is a 4-year framework for minor civil engineering works, and there's an overall financial limit of £10 million, which can be spent on that by the authority, with up to 3 contractors who will carry out these works. The framework provides a mechanism for work being done by individual projects within the LLHPP to have work done that was not included in their scope. The scope of the minor works is evolving, therefore, and generally consists of relatively small items of work, products and services that kind of fall outside the existing scope of the contracts we've let. They may be required to enable the subsequent construction of larger projects, improve construction operations, or address reactive requirements often associated with the coordination of waste management operations and constructions. Examples include minor roadworks, safety improvements, or installing security equipment. In essence, the NLHPP is a programme of work, and there are times when things fall between the cracks and we need access to a flexible workforce that can come in and carry out minor civil engineering works. I shall now pass over to my colleague Alan Haynes, who will expand on that.
Now onto the framework scope. Bidders will be provided with a suite of documents that describe the full scope of the framework and the indicative pipeline of minor civil engineering works likely to be required. These minor civil engineering works may include the following: Argy Road safety improvements, which is generally off-site; Lower Hall lane drainage, again off-site; cycle improvements to the south of the Lee Park Way / laydown area, which again are just off-site; temporary pedestrian footpath to the north of site, EcoPark Western Verge, which are within the EcoPark boundaries; permanent removal of vegetation and replacement with hard standing; footpath to the north of Lee Valley Heat Network, which are some fill-in works; reinstatement of the eastern area of the EcoPark, which is again just within the EcoPark; construction of the permanent eastern access road. This is only a small section, which will probably include blacktop, i.e. tarmac, asphalt, whatever the design specification is, the installation of a weighbridge and lining road markings; external signage for the public using the RRC, vegetation removal around EcoPark House and any other locations that are identified, and Advent Way and Cooks Ferry roundabout traffic improvements, which is off-site. The Argy Road safety improvements scope of works is effectively a plane out of the existing road surface, and bearing in mind this is a private road. Install rumble strips, curbing, white lining, clear the existing drainage and raise. and general lights, bollards and signage. The one in Lower Hall Lane, which is a drainage issue at the moment, will include cycle improvements, a relocation of existing gate entrance, resurfacing of a section of road, installing a raised cycle crossing, general lighting and signage. The one to the south of Lee Park Way laydown area will involve tactile paving, curb line modifications, all within existing council infrastructure, white lining and ANPR signage and vegetation trimming. The temporary pedestrian footpath to the north of site, approximately 230 metres in length. There's a clearance of site vegetation. The work will be quite close to a existing watercourse. You'll be installing graded bedding material, which will be rolled and compacted to a level, and then an installation of what's called a porter path, plus any lighting, double-sided barriers with railings, and any traffic light crossing areas where we're putting pedestrians from the west verge on the EcoPark over to the east side. The permanent removal of vegetation and replacement with hard standing, that's to the external of site, underneath two existing national grid 400 kV pylons. There'll be a stripping of vegetation in this area, excavation to ground and placing of terram, which of course is a weed prevention in this instance, as well as site security and traffic management on a very busy little bit of road, Advent Way and Cooks Ferry roundabout. Footpath to the north of Lee Valley Heat Network. So there's a small section here that will probably about 50 metres in length, which will encompass new surfacing to an existing footpath, some edging, white lining, road markings, potentially a couple of street lights, as well as service trenches for cables. The reinstatement of the Eastern Area Eco Park, and this is post ERF completion, is the reinstatement of a green area following the completion of that particular project. Provision for the Remembrance Garden, we're not sure what that looks like yet, but there is an existing Remembrance Garden there. Reinstatement of a pond, any garden furniture, and any designed landscaping in the area. The Eastern Access Road, which is the permanent down ramp that comes in off Lee Park Way to feed the RRC. It's approximately 100 metres in length. There'll be a fair bit of surfacing in that area and lining, as well as the installation of a weighbridge. Any external signage to the public using the RRC will be just a general case of standard poles with signage to suit circumstance, as well as an additional footpath and road markings in the location. And then the vegetation removal around the Eco Park House and any other location. It's just a general removing of various areas across the Eco Park, not just in and around Eco Park House itself. This could be anywhere within the Eco Park, and I will show you a map on the next slide. Advent Way and Cooks Ferry roundabout traffic improvement works. This is an estimated length of about 200 metres. There's resurfacing work, installation of curbs, road marking, and potential of existing drainage cleaning and replacement. As I alluded to in the last slide, this is the Eco Park as it's set out, and the indicative project locations are noted 1 through to 11 on this drawing. So number 1 being Arger Road, which is again just off the project, will require traffic management in that area due to the likes of Lidl, Biffa, Arc businesses within that industrial estate. Lower Hall Lane drainage, number 2 and 3. This is a mix of a bit of drainage in there as well as cycle lane improvements. Number 3, cycle improvements to the south of Lee Park Way with the laydown area. Again, that all forms part of that little bit of an area in and around Lower Hall Lane, the entrance to the existing laydown area and Camden Plant's main access. So again, traffic management there required and consultation with any local businesses. Temporary pedestrian footpath to the north of site is number 4. That's the one along the west verge with Salmon's Brook with Pym's Brook. There's a couple of names for that particular brook along there, but again, FRAPs will have to be applied for when working within 8 metres of that watercourse. The permanent removal of vegetation and replacement with a hard standing number 5. As you can see, that's just off Cooks Ferry roundabout with Advent Way, opposite Lee Parkway. So again, substantial traffic management requirements there and additional security required during those works. Number 6 is the footpath to the north of Lee Valley Heat Network. Lee Valley Heat Network are putting a new facility in to the very south of the EcoPark for the new heat network for Meridian Water. And there's a little bit of a grey area, shall we call it, that requires some additional works. Number 7, a reinstatement of the eastern area of the EcoPark. That's a fairly big expanse of green land at the moment, which will be returned back to same. Again, a lot of landscaping in that area and as per design. Number 8, the construction of a permanent eastern access road. It's not the full entirety of the road. A lot of that road will be completed. It's the back 20% of the project, as alluded to earlier, where there'll be a weighbridge to be installed, as well as asphalt and any road markings. Number 9, the external signage for the public using the RRC. Again, this is on predominantly on Lee Parkway and the likes, and this will be as per design post planning discussions and applications. Number 10, the vegetation removal around EcoPark House and any other locations. So EcoPark House is based just to the east of an existing infill ditch and to the west of a canal, and then of course anywhere else that's required on site.
Thank you, Alan. I'm Karen Huddleston, Supply Chain Manager for the North London Heat and Power Project. I would like to talk to you today about the Minor Civils Framework Management, the procurement process and the contract terms. The Minor Civils Framework will operate for 4 years from the award date and will include a maximum value of £10 million that can be awarded. The anticipated spend across the life of the framework is expected to be as follows. During Year 1 between 2022 and 2023, there are currently 10 projects with an anticipated total value of £1.8 million. The projects for Years 2 and 3 are still to be confirmed. During Year 4 between 2025 and 2026, there is currently 1 project with an anticipated total value of £610,000. Please note these costs and dates are unconfirmed and are likely to change. However, it is our best perception based upon the current scope and how the programme will be delivered. During the course of the framework, there is a chance that further projects will be added. The framework aims to appoint 3 contractors who will be able to deliver a wide range of construction activities. Projects that are less than £50,000 in value will be shared between the 3 contractors on a rotational basis. Projects that exceed £50,000 in value will require further competition and therefore undergo mini competitive tendering exercises between the 3 framework contractors. All scope shall be executed under an NEC contract with Z-clause amendments. Specific contract options and secondary clauses shall be determined on a project-by-project basis. The procurement of the North London Heat and Power Project Minor Civils Framework is subject to the Public Contracts Regulations 2015. The Minor Civil Framework requirements will therefore be achieved and delivered through a structured tender process which is open, transparent and fair to all candidates. The Minor Civils Framework PIN was published on the UK Finder Tender Service on the 18th of February. The contract notice will be published on the UK Finder Tender Service on the 7th of March. The selection questionnaire, ITT and contract documents will be made available when the contract notice is published. I would now like to talk about the duration of the procurement programme and draw your attention to the key dates within the programme. As you can see from this table, the authority will publish the contract notice and procurement documents on the 7th of March. Candidates must submit their selection questionnaire responses by the 7th of April. Once the authority has completed the selection questionnaire evaluation process, the successful candidates will be invited to submit responses to the ITT. ITT responses must be submitted to the authority by the 16th of May. Following completion of the ITT evaluation process, the authority will seek approval from the programme director to award contracts to the successful tenderers. Tenderers will be notified of the outcome of the ITT evaluation process on the 9th of June, and the standstill period will be observed between the 10th and 20th of June. The contracts will be awarded on the 21st of June. The selection questionnaire will assess candidates' capabilities and strengths to deliver the projects set out within the minor civils framework. In particular, we are looking for experience of delivering the variety of works required under the framework. An important element for the authority is that candidates can demonstrate their experience of delivering health, safety and wellbeing within other projects. In order to evidence these capabilities, we will assess examples of previous projects delivered for other clients. To ensure deliverability, we will look at the financial stability of all candidates. The format of the selection questionnaire is structured, identical for all candidates, consistent in its evaluation criteria, and follows the standard selection questionnaire template. Therefore, all candidates can be sure of a fair selection process. Following completion of the selection questionnaire evaluation process, a maximum of 6 tenderers will be invited to tender for the framework. These 6 tenderers will be given until the 16th of May to submit an ITT response. The ITT evaluation criteria will have a 60% technical weighting and a 40% commercial weighting. A full breakdown of the evaluation criteria will be set out in the ITT documents. The technical evaluation will be undertaken via a series of qualitative scoring criteria linked to each question. The commercial evaluation will require tenderers to submit a schedule of rates covering the following items: fee percentage, hourly people rates, hourly design rates, adjustment of equipment. Suppliers will be appointed to the framework under an agreement based upon the NEC4 framework contract. The NEC4 framework contract is intended for use in the appointment of one or more suppliers to carry out construction work or to provide design or advisory services on an as-instructed basis over a set term. NEC4 is a preferred contract suite across the NLHPP, excluding the Energy Recovery Facility, as government guidance recommends that public bodies adopt NEC4 when procuring contracts for works. It is also underpinned by a requirement that the parties should act in a spirit of mutual trust and cooperation, which are 2 important drivers for the authority. Common features of the NEC4 contracts include proactive risk management, open communication, and the willingness to work together to solve problems whatever their cause. A copy of the proposed terms and conditions governing the framework contract and any call-off contracts will be available in the ITT documents. The framework contract will include contract data that will contain the information for both the authority and the supplier which is necessary to operate the contract and is specific to the particular framework contract. The contract data will also identify the document which contains the framework information, which is a document that will set out how the parties work together throughout the framework period. The NEC4 standard terms will be amended by the authority through the adoption of a number of Z clauses, which will be set out as a schedule to the framework contract. The framework contract will be aligned to what the authority considers to be market requirements and acceptability. As such, it will be the authority's expectation that it will not be required to accept any qualifications to the framework contract. Therefore, by submitting a tender, tenderers will be agreeing to be bound by the terms of the framework contract without qualification. It is envisaged that the NEC4 forms of contract will be used for all call-offs, and this will be set out in the ITT suite of documents. Suppliers may also be required to provide a certain level of performance security in relation to the call-off contracts. The extent of the performance security package required by the authority in relation to each call-off contract will depend on the scope of works and its value, but may include a form of parent company guarantee, a form of performance bond, a deed of collateral warranty. Third-party public and product liability insurance is required for each call-off contract delivered through the minor civils framework. The limit of indemnity for each call-off contract will vary depending on the specific risks associated with the works. The maximum indemnity limit for any single call-off contract will be £50 million. Candidates are required to confirm via their selection questionnaire response that they are able to obtain this level of indemnity should they be required to do so during the life of the framework. When the maximum indemnity of £50 million is required, contractors will be permitted to pass the cost of the insurance premium onto the authority. That concludes the market information presentation. We hope it gives you all of the information that you need in relation to the minor civils framework. We really want to hear your feedback on our proposals for the minor civils framework procurement. Feedback can be provided via the questionnaire, which is available to download from the authority's website. Any questions and completed feedback questionnaires must be submitted via email no later than 12 p.m. on the 25th of February to info@northlondonheatandpower.london. The Minor Civils procurement will be launched via the UK Finder Tender Service on the 7th of March. This will be announced on the authority's project website. We are excited to launch the Minor Civils framework and we look forward to receiving your tender responses. Thank you.